A day at the market. Amanda Gray strode into the suburban supermarket with the kind of poise that few could muster on a casual afternoon. Her black sedan, a sleek model that mirrored her own sharp style, gleamed under the late afternoon sun as she parked it neatly in the bustling lot. As a respected judge in the community, Amanda was well known in legal circles for her rigorous sense of justice and unmatched professionalism, but here in the aisles of her local grocery store, she was just another shopper preparing for the week ahead. Dressed impeccably in a tailored navy business suit that contrasted beautifully against her rich mahogany skin, Amanda moved through the supermarket with purpose. Her dark curls were styled neatly, framing sharp cheekbones and piercing brown eyes that scanned her shopping list with precision. The click of her modest heels on the polished floor marked her progress, her leather tote bag resting securely on her shoulder. As Amanda reached for a carton of eggs, her peace was abruptly interrupted by the sound of screeching tires in the parking lot. Glancing out the window, she saw a young driver, clearly flustered, stepping out of a car that had accidentally nudged her own vehicle's bumper. With a sigh, Amanda set down her basket and walked out to assess the situation. The young driver, a college-age woman with anxious eyes, was already apologizing profusely as Amanda approached. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see your car there," she stammered, her hands nervously fidgeting with her keys. Amanda inspected her bumper, finding no real damage. Her calm demeanor softened the tense moment. "It's all right," she reassured the young woman, her voice steady and kind. "There's no harm done. Just be a bit more careful next time." Her authoritative yet gentle tone diffused the driver's anxiety, who nodded gratefully. However, the incident had caught the attention of two police officers who were patrolling the parking lot. Officers Carter and Miller, leaning casually against their cruiser and sipping coffee, watched the exchange with mild interest that soon turned into pointed attention as they observed Amanda. The officers, both in standard police uniforms that marked their authority, exchanged a glance before approaching. Officer Carter, older and with a weathered look that spoke of many years on the force, led the way. His walk was confident, the smirk on his face less friendly and more evaluative as they neared Amanda. "Everything okay here?" Carter asked as they approached, his tone casual but carrying an undercurrent of skepticism. His blue eyes, pale and scrutinizing, didn't match the warmth Amanda had just extended to the young driver. Amanda turned to face them, her expression shifting subtly to one of professional neutrality. "Yes, officer, everything has been resolved," she responded, ensuring her tone was both firm and courteous. Miller, younger and visibly less assured than his companion, chimed in with a less certain voice, "You don't look like you're from around here." "Nice car though, fancy for a simple shopping trip, isn't it?" Amanda felt a familiar irritation prick at the back of her neck. She was accustomed to being underestimated or subtly challenged because of her appearance, but she had hoped her community role might preclude such encounters. "I assure you, officer, I am simply here to shop, like everyone else," she stated clearly, her eyes holding Carter's gaze steadily. Carter's smirk widened as he took a step closer, his voice dropping to a condescending whisper. "Just making sure, ma'am. We've had incidents around here. Got to keep the peace, you understand." Amanda's posture remained unchanged, her back straight, her face composed. She was aware that this conversation had veered far from a routine check. "Indeed, I do understand," she replied. "However, I believe my shopping should not be a cause for concern." As the officers continued to press, the encounter was drawing the attention of other shoppers. Amanda knew she needed to handle the situation with all the acumen she brought to her courtroom, unaware that this seemingly minor incident would soon escalate to a pivotal confrontation that would challenge her more deeply than any legal case. Escalation and exposure. The tension in the parking lot thickened as officers Carter and Miller, sensing that Amanda was not just any shopper, subtly shifted their stance to one of more direct interrogation. The casual smirk on Carter's face had disappeared, replaced by a scrutinizing squint. He glanced at Miller with a slight nod, an unspoken signal between partners too accustomed to asserting their authority unchallenged. "Ma'am, would you mind showing us some identification?" Carter's voice was polite yet firm, a tone that suggested compliance was expected rather than requested. Amanda's brow furrowed slightly. This request, though seemingly routine, felt laden with implication given the circumstances. "Certainly, officer," she replied, maintaining her composure. Reaching into her purse, she pulled out her wallet, presenting her driver's license along with her judicial ID, which clearly stated her position as a county judge. Miller's eyes widened slightly as he took the ID cards from Amanda, his earlier bravado faltering under the weight of her actual identity. He glanced at the judicial ID, then up at Amanda, his demeanor shifting from presumptive authority to cautious respect. Carter, taking the ID from Miller, studied it for a moment longer than necessary. His expression was unreadable as he handed back the cards. "Judge Gray, my apologies. We didn't realize," he began. Amanda cut him off, her voice cool but not unkind. "No harm done, officer. But perhaps this can serve as a reminder not to make assumptions based solely on appearances," she said, her tone diplomatic yet pointed. She took her ID back, tucking it away with deliberate slowness. The young driver, who had remained nearby, watched this exchange with wide eyes. Amanda turned to her with a reassuring smile, a silent gesture that spoke volumes about her grace under pressure. "Thank you for staying," Amanda said to her. "But it's okay, you can go now." With a nervous nod, the young woman quickly retreated to her car, eager to escape the uncomfortable scene. As the officers made to leave, Amanda called after them. "Officers, one moment, please." They turned, eyebrows raised. "I hope that in the future, engagements like this can be conducted with more consideration and less confrontation. We all share the responsibility of maintaining community trust and safety." Carter nodded, the hint of a genuine apology in his eyes. "Understood, Judge Gray. Again, our apologies for the misunderstanding." As the officers walked away, Amanda stood still, watching them leave. She felt a mix of relief and frustration. Relief that the encounter had de-escalated without further issue, but frustration at the reminder of the everyday challenges faced by individuals like herself, even in positions of authority. This incident, though resolved, stirred something within Amanda. It wasn't just about her, it was about what such encounters represented in her community, and potentially, the broader societal implications. As she returned to her car, her mind began to turn over the idea of how she might leverage her position to effect more significant change, not just in the courtroom but in the community dialogues about race, perception, and authority. Amanda knew her experience today was a symptom of a larger issue that needed addressing, a dialogue that required a platform where voices could be heard and understood without prejudice. As she drove away, the seeds of this new initiative began to germinate in her mind, shaping what would soon become a pivotal campaign in her career and perhaps, a defining moment in her life's work. A catalyst for change. After the supermarket incident, Amanda Gray returned home, her thoughts swirling with the day's events. The encounter, while brief, had left a deep impression on her, highlighting a pervasive issue that went beyond a simple misunderstanding in a parking lot. She recognized that her position as a judge provided her with a unique platform to address these systemic issues, and the incident ignited a determination to advocate for broader societal change. Over the next few days, Amanda began to outline a plan for a community engagement initiative aimed at fostering understanding and dialogue between law enforcement and the communities they serve. She envisioned a series of forums and workshops that would not only educate but also open channels of communication to bridge gaps and build trust. Amanda reached out to her network of colleagues in the legal and law enforcement fields, including judges, police chiefs, and community leaders, to discuss her ideas and gather support. The response was overwhelmingly positive, as many shared her concerns about the growing disconnect and were eager to contribute to a solution. With a solid coalition forming, Amanda organized the first event, titled Unity in Understanding. The forum was designed to be an open discussion, allowing community members to voice their concerns, experiences, and suggestions for improving relations with local law enforcement. To ensure a balanced and constructive dialogue, Amanda invited panelists from diverse backgrounds, including police officers who were respected for their community service, activists known for their advocacy on civil rights, and legal experts in public policy. The evening of the forum arrived, and the community center was packed with residents whose expressions reflected a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and hope. As Amanda stepped up to the podium to introduce the event, she felt a rush of responsibility, aware that her words needed to heal, inspire, and mobilize. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight," Amanda began, her voice clear and commanding yet warm. "We are here because we believe in the power of dialogue to foster understanding. We are here because we know that change begins with listening, truly listening, to each other's stories, challenges, and ideas for the future." The discussion that followed was intense and emotional at times, but Amanda moderated with a steady hand. Residents shared personal stories of interactions with law enforcement, some painful, some positive. Officers spoke about the challenges and dangers they faced daily, and their commitment to serving justly and honorably. One particular moment stood out when a young black man recounted a fearful encounter with police. Sitting across from him on the panel, a veteran police officer responded not with defensiveness but with empathy. "I'm sorry that was your experience," he said, his voice earnest. "It's not what any of us in uniform want. Let's work on how we can do better." The forum concluded with concrete steps agreed upon by all participants: increased training for police on cultural competency and de-escalation techniques, the establishment of a civilian review board, and regular community police dialogues. The success of the first forum led to a series, each building on the momentum of the last. Amanda's initiative began gaining attention from national media, and she was invited to speak about her work at various national conferences. The positive feedback fueled her drive, and she expanded her efforts, establishing a nonprofit organization dedicated to funding and supporting similar initiatives across the country. Amanda's work, catalyzed by a single incident in a supermarket parking lot, had grown into a movement. As she planned for the next series of forums, she reflected on the journey that began with personal indignation but had blossomed into a powerful campaign for change. Amanda knew there was much work still to be done, but she was ready to lead the charge, empowered by the belief that understanding and respect for human dignity could indeed transform society. Building bridges nationwide. Motivated by the success of the initial forums and the formation of her nonprofit, Amanda Gray's efforts to foster communication and understanding between law enforcement and communities took on a new magnitude. Her mission expanded, not just in scope but in depth, as she began to form partnerships with major national organizations dedicated to civil rights, police reform, and community building. With this expanded network, Amanda launched a nationwide campaign called Bridges to Unity. The campaign aimed to implement the successful models of her local forums in cities across the United States, adapting each event to reflect the unique challenges and demographics of each community. Her objective was clear: to create sustainable change through education, dialogue, and policy reform at both local and national levels. Expanding the dialogue. Amanda worked tirelessly, traveling to different cities to meet with local leaders, activists, and police departments. In each location, she conducted workshops that not only discussed the broader themes of justice and community safety but also tackled specific local issues such as racial profiling, police brutality, and systemic discrimination within law enforcement agencies. These workshops served as a prelude to larger public forums similar to those she had initiated back home. Each forum was meticulously planned to include a diverse panel that represented a cross-section of the community, including youth representatives, religious leaders, and local politicians. This diversity ensured that the discussions were comprehensive and inclusive, providing a platform for voices that were often marginalized. Media engagement and public perception. Recognizing the power of media in shaping public perception, Amanda also focused on engaging with local and national media outlets to cover these events. She participated in interviews, wrote op-eds, and utilized social media to spread awareness about the campaign's goals and achievements. Her efforts were not just about transparency but about crafting a narrative of positive change and collective responsibility that could inspire similar initiatives elsewhere. Challenges and controversies. One of the most significant outcomes of the symposium was the drafting of the National Declaration on Community and Police Relations, a document co-authored by all participants, outlining a series of commitments and goals for the next decade. The declaration included pledges to enhance transparency in law enforcement agencies, increase funding for community policing initiatives, and establish a national database to track incidents of police misconduct. In her closing remarks, Amanda highlighted the importance of the declaration as a roadmap for future efforts. This document represents not just our hopes and aspirations but our firm commitments to action. Let it be a guide and a benchmark by which we measure our progress in the years to come, she stated, her voice resonant in the packed hall. Continued advocacy and educational initiatives. Buoyed by the success of the symposium, Amanda launched a new initiative aimed at the younger generation. She established the Future Leaders in Justice program, which aimed to educate high school and college students about the principles of justice, civil rights, and community service. The program included internships, workshops, and guest lectures by leaders in various fields related to criminal justice and community advocacy. Reflection and resolve. As Amanda reflected on the journey that had started from a personal encounter and grown into a national movement, she felt a mix of pride and responsibility. The road ahead was still long, and the challenges were many, but she was committed to pushing forward, driven by the belief that sustainable change was possible with perseverance and collaboration. Her vision for a just and equitable society, where police and communities could work together in mutual respect and understanding, had never been clearer. With each step, Amanda Gray was not just building bridges, she was laying the foundations for a new and better future. Legacy and institutionalization. As the momentum from the National Symposium on Community and Police Relations continued to build, Amanda Gray focused on the crucial task of transforming the energy and ideas generated during the event into sustainable, long-lasting impact. This next phase was about institutionalizing the changes and ensuring that the progress made was deeply embedded within communities and law enforcement agencies nationwide. Establishing the Center for Community Police Cooperation. One of Amanda's most significant steps following the symposium was the establishment of the Center for Community Police Cooperation, CCPC. Based in Washington, D.C., the center served as a hub for ongoing research, policy development, and training related to community police relations. It provided resources and support for cities looking to implement new practices and offered a repository of data and best practices that could be accessed by anyone from policymakers to local activists. The CCPC also launched a biennial conference, designed to continue the dialogue started at the symposium and to assess the progress on the commitments outlined in the National Declaration on Community and Police Relations. These conferences brought together a diverse group of stakeholders, including newer voices from communities recently initiating reform efforts, to discuss challenges, celebrate successes, and recalibrate strategies moving forward. Strategic partnerships and policy advocacy. Amanda leveraged her growing influence to forge strategic partnerships with key national and international organizations. These partnerships amplified the reach and impact of the CCPC's initiatives, bringing global perspectives into the conversation and aligning local efforts with broader movements for human rights and justice. Moreover, Amanda became a sought-after advisor on policy development for governmental agencies. She worked closely with legislators to craft bills that aimed to improve transparency, accountability, and community engagement in policing. Her expertise was instrumental in pushing forward several key pieces of legislation at both state and federal levels. Educational programs and public engagement. Understanding the importance of public support and awareness, Amanda expanded the educational initiatives under the CCPC. The center developed a curriculum for schools that focused on civil rights, the history of policing in America, and the importance of civic engagement. This program aimed to educate young people on their rights and responsibilities and to inspire a new generation to get involved in shaping the policies that affected their communities. The CCPC also hosted public forums and town halls regularly, making them accessible via live streaming to ensure that anyone, regardless of location, could participate. These events were crucial in maintaining public dialogue about police reform and in holding both community leaders and law enforcement accountable. Reflections on progress and the path forward. As Amanda looked back over the years since that pivotal day in the supermarket parking lot, she was struck by the depth and breadth of change that had occurred. There had been setbacks and challenges, certainly, but the overall trajectory had been one of profound transformation in the relationship between police and communities. In her memoir, which she began writing as a way to document and reflect on her experiences, Amanda wrote, "Change is not a sprint but a marathon. It requires persistence, resilience, and, most importantly, hope. Our efforts are not just about reforming a system but about transforming how we think about justice, community, and our shared humanity." As she prepared for the launch of her book, Amanda planned a series of readings in some of the cities most impacted by the work of the CCPC. These events were not just about promoting her book but were meant to reignite conversations on justice and community relations and to remind everyone of the work still ahead. Amanda Gray's journey had started with a personal encounter that sparked a movement. Now, her legacy was defined not just by what she had accomplished, but by the ongoing work she had inspired others to undertake. Her commitment had sown the seeds of a more just and equitable society, and her continued leadership was a beacon of hope for future generations.